All right, so today's session, our topic is a smile as design approach for good architecture. Personally, I really like this topic. Could you elaborate how important the smile is and why it's good for good architecture?
Well, you see, when you go to a housing estate these days, you know, all these gated communities or so, and you see all the houses look the same, and people spend a lot of money buying those houses. But on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, you see the cars leaving one after the other. So people buy those houses, but when they have the time to actually spend time there, they think the grass is greener somewhere else. Life is more beautiful somewhere else. And why is that? Because there's no connection between the thing they bought as a home and their heart. So what I think is that there's a serious failure in terms of architectural terms of saying this is a home when there's actually no feeling of a home. And I think the feeling of a home starts with a smile. If you see a house and you smile, you say, wow, and your smile starts, then there's a connection being made. And once the connection is there, then you want to be there. Then you will take care of the place, and the place will take care of you. So that's why I think the smile is one of the most important things.
Your house should make you want to come home, right?
Exactly. Should make you want to stay home too.
Right, exactly. Right. So before today's session, we have some questions from the audience pre-submitted. So I would like to read them out. There are 4 questions, and feel free to answer however you like. Question number 1, how does incorporating the concept of a smile as design approach into architectural design help to create environments that positively benefit communities?
Well, I think it always starts with a small unit, right? It starts with 1 person, 2 persons who like something. It starts with a family, and then that family finds people who have a similar kind of thought, who have a similar kind of life. And once you start attracting people who think similarly, well, you start attracting communities who like what you do, who think similar. I'm not so sure whether my approach is a community approach in that sense. It's a quality approach. And I think quality talks to anybody or any group that has this kind of attitude. So I'm not saying I'm creating community spaces. I'm saying I create quality spaces, and that will create communities or not on its own, depending on the size of the space, the meaning of the space, the function of the space.
And once you create a good quality space, it would attract similar-minded people maybe, and that will create the community.
Right. I think the community creation, it's like in the olden days. That's why I was always fascinated with architecture, is that architecture can create spaces that have a certain effect on people, like the Acropolis with the Greeks, right? Democracy could only start because they created a space where people had the feeling they could talk to each other. They had the space where it was allowed to share opinions. And there was a space where people who share opinions knew another person who shares opinions is there. So they went there and talked. And that's how the whole thing started. It was architecture that created that space. And that's the same here. If we create spaces where we see quality that talks to us, to our hearts, to our senses, I think part of the topic today is, about the sensuality of architecture and how the sensuality of architecture has an impact on the quality of the space. And that's why we use the natural materials, because we see that natural materials naturally talk to us much easier than the conventional construction materials. When we see them, when we touch them, when we smell them, there is an interaction there that is more based on our origins and our nature, on where we come from, than if you go into a space that just smells of color and concrete.
So going back to what you said about people, leaving home on weekends and spend more time outside of home. So what are qualities that you feel that a home should have in order to create a good, smile, design approach for the home?
That is a very subjective thing in many ways, but for me it starts with design, function, and the material. So there's three things that always have to come together, right? These three things. In terms of design, I can see that if we take things out of the box, and I mean literally out of the box, a smile is created much easier. They have this very funny thing they call modern architecture, right? I'm asked very often, why don't you go for modern design? And I ask, what do you mean modern design? Oh, I mean the square box thing. I'm speechless. I'm speechless. Why? Because the square box thing started with Bauhaus, right? So if you see a car that is 100 years old, do you call this a modern car? No, you call it an Oldsmobile, right? But if you see architecture that's based on a 100-year-old principle, you call it modern architecture. Making me speechless. Right? Ours is 100 years old. Forget that stuff. It's totally useless in these times. Maybe it was useless at that time. So I find that forms that are flowing, that have something to do with nature's lines, that come out of the inside, and that connect inside and outside, these kind of forms are much more likely to generate a smile than a little prison box. Right? And then combined with the materials, in many ways I'm very, very traditional architect in the sense that function always comes first, right? All the decisions about design and exactly what lines we draw only come after we really understand the function of the client, the function of the space, the location, all of these factors. And then the lines will actually start emerging by themselves.
I see. Thank you. All right. Question number 2. You used to be a doctor. How did you switch to working in the architectural and construction field?
I'm not so much into these personal things. Things just happen in life, Not much to say to that. It just happened. The explanation here is probably that I come from Austria, an Austrian countryside, and when I was young in the Austrian countryside, there was no telephone. We didn't have a telephone home. There was, of course, no mobile phone, and if anything broke down, you had to go and fix it yourself. You want to make an extension, you had to get your neighbors, your friends, and you had to build it yourself. There was no shop where you could go and open the door and say, oh, I want this. Just, that was the next town was far away. So I grew up with building and looking at things, and I always enjoyed it. So even while I was studying medicine, I earned my money repairing apartments. And when I came over here, the first thing is building a house. It was just a normal thing for me to do. So it's not like a huge jump from one profession to the other. And,
it was already inside you.
It was already there. And I just followed the flow. And, I never planned anything. I never planned to become a doctor. I never planned to become an architect. It just happens. So I can't give you any deeper reason to that.
All right. Okay. Cool. All right, next question. Numerous materials can be used to produce architectural works. However, why do you choose bamboo as the major material in your works?
Actually, there was a slide in the beginning. Again, it starts with functionality. I chose bamboo because I realized that bamboo is a lightweight construction material. There's a higher tensile strength than steel. And it exists in two different forms. It exists in a tube form and in the rod form. So I can use it for different functions. And it is nice to look at, so I don't have to decorate it much. And it doesn't rust. The first thing that I liked about bamboo is that if you use it near the seaside, it will definitely last longer than any kind of steel construction. It just doesn't rust. And when we treat it in a salt solution, so the salt is actually enhancing the preservation. So will actually even last longer with the salty air. The problem with bamboo is the image. because people think, oh, it doesn't last long, it isn't strong and all of this, but this is just like with anything else, it's just ignorance. In the early years, bamboo is full of sugar, it's food. That's why the panda bear eats it, we eat it, but if we let the bamboo grow for 4 years, the sugar content goes down, the fiber content goes up, and suddenly you have a construction material that is not eaten. In Thailand, they call it the moth, the little insects that eat the bamboo. They only eat the young bamboo. They're not stupid either. They don't want to go into the old stuff. It's like asparagus, right? If you have a young one, it's nice. You have the old one, can't even cut it with a knife. You're going to eat that one. Same with here. The insects are smart. So and then we treat it additionally, but that's only 10%. So after that, the bamboo will last like any wood, you know. So this will be there in 70 years or 80 years. No reason why it should go anywhere. Right? So I realized the problem why it wasn't used was just ignorance. So I started to learn, started to find a team, and I realized also with the bamboo, the bamboo helps me find the right lines. I can do the kind of design I like to do. So, several things came together. Then the earthen architecture, that we use earth for the walls because, again, I can do the curves. It has no carbon footprints, nice to look at, has similar colors. So these things come together. And in our climate, these two materials are very good insulators against heat. Our bamboo roofs protect against heat much better than most conventional roof materials. Of course, here now you find high-tech stuff. But the carbon footprint of that material and of my material, let's compare that at one point, right? So the roof insulates well against heat. The earthen walls, this is an open building. So even here, if you walk inside, when it's hot outside, you will feel much cooler inside. And with the earthen walls, they have a high thermal mass, so they can insulate well against the heat either. So you have very highly functional materials, and then they are beautiful, and then the whole green thing and carbon footprint is like the icing on the cake. It's nice, but that's not. To answer your question, I started from functionality and beauty.
And do you always use the clay walls and construction together with the bamboo, or can bamboo be constructed with other materials?
Yeah, it can be constructed with other materials. Actually, in some occasions, we use light blocks or so, like a resort we do now up on the hills. Much too difficult to carry our heavy blocks up there, so we use the light blocks. Also, because it's on a platform, it reduces the load. Use the light blocks, so we have to do less foundation. So yeah, it's always a consideration of several issues and of cost and of weight and all of these things.
Right. And also I feel for the structural purpose as well, because it's lightweight and it can take the lateral loads. So meaning, for example, up north, our neighboring countries would have earthquake, and your building would be moving a little bit, but that will be there tomorrow. Whereas if it is reinforced concrete, maybe if it wasn't designed for earthquake-prone areas, it would be not as flexible as your building.
Yeah, that's true. Bamboo is probably the best earthquake material there can be because of its high tensile strength, shear force strength, and its flexibility. And even for strong winds and hurricanes, if a strong wind hits a roof like this, the difference to a flat roof is the wind will part and flow along the roof. It will never impact the roof straight on like it impacts flat roofs. Plus, our roofs can move a little bit. So in places where they have tornadoes, hurricanes, our roofs will be the last one standing, most likely. Like, they just had a storm in Chiangmai where we are building, and we haven't even finished and anchored things down, but they had a strong wind. My client had a huge solar panel area, all gone. Neighbors' roofs gone. Our bamboo roofs still there. Not a little problem. Not a single, issue with them.
Oh wow! Great. All right. Next question. What obstacles do architects have to working sustainably? And how do you address this challenge in your practice?
I don't really know because my main focus. I was just lucky. If you do the right thing, usually things come together, and the whole puzzle falls together. So it was here. I looked for functional materials. I found materials I like. I realized all the other potential of the materials, and they were sustainable. And of course now I'm promoting sustainable architecture. And these days, why wouldn't you? Or I mean, it's the sensible thing to do. And in the end, our design and what we do, I want to have impact on the broader scene of construction and architecture. This is not for fringe groups. We try to do designs that are not, hippie designs or whatever. They can be used for everybody, for anything. And in that sense, I hope that our work will one day have a more impact in a broader sense than just, be a nice special group on the side. But you have to do what you like to do, right? If you like to do glass buildings and then you think I have to become a sustainable architect, that's got to be difficult. You have to find an angle, either in design or material or whatever that you like. And once you work with what you like, I think you will always find a path.
So to you, bamboo not only is a construction material, but you actually it has its charm that attracts you to work with it and want to explore it even more.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I mean, if you see some people use bamboo and build square houses or triangles or so, but I think that is designing to the weakness of the material, because the strong part of the material is the pole, right? But once you do squares or triangles, you need to make connections, and it's the connection that is the weak point. And if anything breaks, it's not the bamboo in between, but it's the connection that makes it break. Because at the connection, if you have a 9-meter long pole and you pull on one end, you have an exponential force on the other side. And that force will only go onto the wall. It is not going to be delivered throughout the length of the pole. So what we try to do, like here, we bundle the bamboo, and in that way we get around the connection problem, because these bundles can be endless. And depending on the size of the individual poles in the bundle and on the whole diameter of the bundle, we can do 30-meter spans with a big bundle like this, or 4-meter spans with a smaller bundle of smaller bamboo. You just have to understand the connection with the size of the diameter of the bamboo and the diameter of the curve you want to create. But it's an endless way to build, and in that sense it makes it much stronger.
And do you use many types of bamboo in one project? Because obviously, the bigger members of structure has to be bigger tubes and longer span, whereas in your projects you have smaller and finer ones as well. They're not the same species.
That's correct. Yeah, we use about, I would say, 4 or 5 species of bamboo in any construction.
I see.
There's Dendrocalmus asperis, the big guys that we use, but most of them is a local species. They call them Hailuok dam, Hailuok khao, Tysostachus oliveri, or Tysostachus siamensis in the language of the botanists.
Right, and also the roofing. The
roofing again is a different material. It's probably a bambusa species. It's also a bigger pole. And this is still done in the villages where the old people sit with their knives and then they slash on it and they flatten it up, and then we get the flattened bamboo from the villages and then we treat it and use it.
I see. All right. Okay. And obviously they have to be treated, or naturally they have a film to protect itself.
I mean, all of the bamboo is treated in a borax solution, boric acid solution. That is a preservative, but also borax is a fire retardant, so it helps with that. But the roofs themselves are layered roofs that have tar sheets in between, so they become waterproof, rainproof, and also insulate against heat better.
Right. Okay. I guess in the tropical climate, like in Thailand, we can design with the open wall, like no walls, When your client would like to have some air-conditioned space, enclosed space, do you find it more challenging that the bamboos, the fact that it's not square and boxy like, concrete walls, has it become more challenging to you?
I mean, you need craftsmen who can deal with that problem. It's definitely more work. Yes, I mean all of our work is kind of in the middle between sculpturing and construction, right? It's not pure straightforward construction. I have teams that were trained for many years to do all the work. I have earth teams, I have bamboo teams, and they know what they do. And I'm very lucky to have my partner with whom I design everything. He's a young Thai architect, very gifted, very talented. So, I mean, in the beginning we designed, when I started in Chiang Mai 15 years ago, we didn't have pollution, we didn't have PM 2.5 problems, and we didn't have the heat. 15 years ago we had 2 days of 40 degrees a year and 1 or 2 days of pollution. So it changed. So at the beginning everything was open, natural ventilation. And over time, it just didn't work anymore. We had to close the rooms and put in air conditioning and also air cleaning systems. And but because our walls have a high thermal mass and they insulate well, they insulate both ways. So once your room is cool, it stays cool much longer than any other room. So you need less energy to cool the room over time. And with the fresh air system that pumps in oxygen and fresh air all the time, you actually get a very stable and very good room climate indeed.
All day long, day and night, I guess.
Yes.
Right. Okay. That's great. So these are the submitted questions that I had, but I'm wondering, because we have quite a few audience here, if anyone have any questions or for Mr. Markus, please feel free.
Hi. So thank you for the whole explanations and the discussions. But I was wondering, earlier you mentioned about a smile, but we only touched just about the client part, like the user of the house or that part. You haven't elaborated yet about a smile as coming from the architects or designers designing their house. So would you mind elaborate on that part as well? How that a smile actually works for architects or designers or like future architects?
If you design something, let me start differently. If you go and see a sunset, if you see a beautiful waterfall, people just smile. They look at these things and say, wow, this is so nice. And they feel this thing that touches their heart, right? And in these moments, when you have something that touches your heart as a designer, usually these are the moments when you become more creative. And you can think a little bit more outside of the box. So it's a good question. So it works both ways. If you surround yourselves with design ideas that are nature related, and nature related in a way something that you like, it can be a huge, for me it's mountainscapes with lakes inside, stuff like that. That's why you will see several of the designs that we have. I imitate the mountainscape with the design of the buildings that we do, because it just inspires me and it makes me feel better, and because it does that with me, I can go into it more and I can draw other people into that space as well. I mean, that's the thing with good design anywhere, right? That's not much different from any other good design. But the difference is that if you like what you do and it inspires you, it actually adds energy. It creates more energy all the time. And it's easier to inspire. And in the end, the inspiration is, one of the reasons why I talk here. So it's inspiration, right? If I see it inspires someone to do something different, to think out of the box, to take architecture a step further. Zaha Hadid, when she started, used Bauhaus, awful stuff. Why do I know? Because she was teaching in Vienna at that time, my home city. Nobody ever lived in this building, but she evolved, right? When she's an inspired being, she took it out of the box and went further and further. By now, I think Zaha Hadid Architects is the most inspiring architect firm of the big ones in the world, because they do my stuff, right? They do the round forms, they do creative things. So it's that inspiration that I'm looking for to give, and the reason why is because I like what we do. I like that I can see a lot of people come, look at this, the kids that come to the school, they smile, they don't want to go home. Once you see that when we went to school, nobody wanted to go there, and when the bell rang, everybody was gone in a second. I see the parents running after their kids and having discussions to go home. They come on Sundays, So once you feel, and once you see that smile in the kids, and you see the long face of the parents because the kids want to go to school, then you say, okay, that's a path that makes sense, It's a path that re-inspires ourselves to go down that way. And I think it starts with nature's curves. If you have something that you like in nature and you start with that, then it will take you to a place where the smile happens.
And do you think with your architecture, I know that you have, there's a school, right, that you have co-founded, and with your amazing, curved architecture, how do you think the free flow or free form of the roof or the shape of the roof has affected on the students, the way they learn, the way how enjoyable the school has become, as opposed to them being in a boxy room, sitting there and studying?
I think here we have to look at it differentiated in age. For the little kids, they just love the forms, that unusual forms. They love the materials, love to touch it. They run around like this. And if we look at the teenagers are a whole different species, right? They have to be cool. So here we have to combine it. What we did to make this more palatable for elder kids is, on one hand, we have the design, which is can be interpreted cool or not by the teenagers. That's up to them. But then we combine it with as much technology, with as much things that are important to them, and show them that natural materials is not only for hippies or their parents, but natural materials for everyone at this point, at this time. And they do have this environmental consciousness. Kids, the teenagers, they understand that we cannot go on like this. So we show them there's a path. There's a path where we use natural materials to create a space that you like. Even you like. You're the most difficult of species. You're teenagers. But we put in, AI recognition system, the most modern air conditioning, because teenagers without air condition, that doesn't work. And create a space or open spaces with pillows, and try to, create a space where they say, okay, I can show this to my friends. And there's a good reason behind everything that is happening. So yeah, I think you have to look age by age and create a space that is inspiring at different ages and at different.
Right. And as an educational space, I also wonder that because it's unusual, your building and the neighbors are not, they're not the same, and it probably intrigue some questions in the students. How does this roof hold up? And why is it curved here? And why we have bigger opening here or smaller opening there? And that's already part of the education. Yes. Education is not only about sitting there being taught by your teachers, but I think asking questions is also something that your building does to the students.
Asking questions is the basics. The most difficult thing is to make a good question. If people can come up with good questions, then I think they're intelligent. It's questions that show that you have digested something and taken it to the next place in your mind, and then you have a question for that. So yes, I have a lot of questions which I find great, and some of them are actually very difficult to answer because the way they look at things and ask you have to be very imaginative sometimes and improvise to answer the questions. But they do have, and the teachers already answer a lot of them, but once in a while I have to go in and try to clarify.
Right. And I think the spaces would be quite exciting, like seeing the teenagers, and they love their iPads, always on their phone, with quite a contrast, with the natural building and the technology that are using these days.
Yes. So actually this one is the library, and there's a special place in the library where they can kind of slouch on the floor and hang out and have the sockets for their iPods there. And so it's just, and they love it. All of them go to this library to study. They don't go home. They go in here and stay here. Also they meet their friends. The others also like it. So if I see that happening, I feel like, we're going in the right direction with creating spaces.
And also with them, in terms of functionality, right? You just mentioned, and I also can imagine how cool, the flooring material or how cozy it feels under the roof forms as well.
Yeah, so that's a good thing with natural materials. The colors have always this warmth in them, right? They have this coziness that they create this interesting thing. Also, if you look at something that is irregular in some way, it's a lot more interesting than if something is totally the same. If you paint the wall totally white, you might look at it cool one time, but if you have all this bamboo and the earthen walls like this something can look again and again because it never looks the same, right? And also have a much better connection to it.
Definitely. All right. Any other questions?
Very good. I'm getting hoarse already. Anyway.
I have plenty of questions.
All right. Okay.
I am your person here. So I'm pretty inspired by your works, and I'm imagining, like you said, your background, coming from the Austria, which is quite a cold climate. And then coming here, being in Thailand and living in Thailand, producing these amazing buildings. Do you think that bamboo could actually be used in the colder climate? And what challenges you think it might have, or what we could explore further?
It's a very good question. It comes up quite a lot. I think there's two answers to this question. The first one is looking in the past, and the second one looking in the future. You have actual bamboo architecture in colder places like in China or in Japan. And they have different species like anything else. If the climate gets colder, things are smaller. The bigger things, or in the tropical climates, the smaller things can also grow. So they have species that actually grow in that area, but they're just smaller species. So you can do things that are doable with smaller bamboo in that area, from that area. Okay, let me add a third one. So in these today's worlds where you can ship bamboo anywhere, you could ship bamboo from here to these spaces, but then you have to be aware of the climate interactions. And now come to the third part of the question. We need more research, and we need more funding of research into bamboo. What we are doing here is the first step. That this is bamboo's not even 1.0, this is 0.05, right? This is the first step. If we look at steel, if we look at concrete, how much money has gone into the research and development of these materials? Hundreds of millions of dollars, right?
And the time as well.
And the time, and how much money has gone into understanding bamboo? A couple of $100,000 maybe? There's just so much knowledge that is still not there. So do I think in the future we'll be able to build? Yes. With the current knowledge, no. We need a lot more knowledge before we can really answer all the potential problems, and we can really answer questions the way that clients will feel safe with the answer.
Definitely. Right. And in terms of the clients that they approach you, because, your image and bamboos are kind of tied in together. Is there any clients that come and said, I want less of bamboo and more of something else?
This one right here. Yeah, sure that happens. There's different aspects to my work. There's the bamboo part, there's the earthen part, and there's the design part that is different. And depending on the client, we accommodate what. In the end, we want to make the client happy, not me, right? If the client is happy with what we build for them, we're happy. So if they just want, like my good friend Paul here, just the earthen part, but the more Thai style background, fine, we can do that too, and then give the bamboo a rest for it.
Right.
Not a problem.
Sure. And I also understand that your company, CLC, Chiangmai Life Construction and Architects.
Yeah, so there's two parts. Design part, Chiangmai Life Architects, construction part, Chiangmai Life Construction.
I see. And so for your design, it has to be built with your company, or you think that other local construction companies would understand this sort of construction?
No, unfortunately not. The reason why I have the construction company is because we don't have many people can actually build this. At this point, this is also the whole bamboo industry is in its baby steps, in the sense that it is not developed and separated. I have to actually buy and treat the bamboo myself. I have a treatment plant. I don't really want to do this, and I'm definitely not very good at it. And I'm pretty sure any engineer who is into treatment process can make this a lot more efficient and cheaper and higher quality than me. But if I go to the other treatment plants and I see the bamboo just being hardly covered by the treatment material, I don't want to build with this material, because in the end I'm responsible to the client, right? So if I put the things up and it starts, the little insects go in, they come to me. The reason why I do the treatment, the construction myself, is there's nobody else there. I do hope that in the future the whole industry will be more developed, and we just have to do design, and we have somebody who can build it, somebody that treats the bamboo, who collects the bamboo, plants the bamboo. Everything is going to be a separated chain.
Right. And do you feel, like at the moment, like let's say the buildings with the background of the beautiful natural landscape, how do you think the bamboo as a material and the form that you have introduced here could be used in the city? The problem with the city is the density, right? That's why we have high rises, condominiums. And again, because we build big, we rely on the concrete and steel mainly. But it means that in a way it lacks of life, and we feel even more disconnected from nature. You go on the street, everywhere you look at concrete or processed materials. And I think at the moment we rely on having parks. That's how we can see a tree. But, less and less we see traditional Thai buildings that's built with wood, because people face so many problems with them. Having a bamboo being introduced in urban environment, I'm not, I see...
You see, it depends on how you use it. You will see later in this presentation, you probably have seen it already. We're building a 3-story apartment building on Koh Samui, and of course the main structure is reinforced concrete. It's a skeletal structure because of the construction laws, right? And the way we have to build a lot of higher things. But again, there is a question of research. So we just make the roof and our forms, and we change the design of the projects to look more our style. But the structural part is reinforced concrete. But the roof is bamboo. So it depends on where you use it. You can introduce it into a cityscape and an urban landscape, for sure. Just have to make it step by step, so you can get the construction permit, so that everything is done. Then you develop the material further. And right now we have an interaction. We have an agreement with Chiangmai University, where they're going to make some research on bamboo, and then they will certify that the bamboo actually has this strength. So then we can introduce it to the legislation, so we can change construction. So everything has to go step by step, because at this point, it is only half legal to do things with bamboo, because there's no real data out there. So we actually have to sponsor producing this data. And the same here. So in the future, yeah, sure. But it will take a bit of time until we get the right data, until we get the right laws, until we get, people on board for all of these things. But yeah, I'd love to create a skyscraper with bamboo in Bangkok at one point.
Right, and I think it will bring smile.
Yes,
people,
I think it will be different.
Right, like at the beginning you said that people, leave home and don't spend so much time at home. They don't feel connected to it.
Yes.
And I think that natural material or nature could bring that connection, give them a smile and stay at home longer.
Yeah, I think especially in the city, if you create something, it's always size matters in the end. I've seen it with the hall. If you create something big, it has more impact than a little thing. So if we can create a big building in a city that is unexpected and that is different, the impact of this building in terms of changing people's minds and of changing architecture as a whole will be much bigger than this kind of resorts that we build on the hill, where you expect them anyway. It's nice, it's beautiful, it's fun to do to a certain extent. But our mission is really changing the way of people think about design, about materials on a bigger scale. So if I say if I look at what we would like to achieve, yes, I would definitely like to go into the cities and build things there.
Right. I'm looking forward to seeing it. All right. Any questions from the audience? Okay. So I have a lot of questions. So your biggest how about the tallest? Can bamboo, like, if we were talking about the, the urban environment at the moment, we're thinking about going up vertically. So do you think that bamboo can be used on multiple levels? Like, meaning can have a, let's say a shop house, where it's not that big, but you can go up many levels. Does it have a strength to?
Yeah, there's, in Bali, they built one of those houses with 3 stories. Here's our skyscraper. You can, and again, see, when we make the big steps in knowledge, it's usually with a project. And all we need is clients with some balls who gives us a project that goes a step further than what has been done, and then we can develop something that hasn't been developed yet. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we can take it up several floors, and we need close interaction with engineers how to do this the best. And that's also why we try to get in touch with as many engineers as possible all over the world and try to get them in and work. There's an interesting seminar going to be in June in Holland. Holland is a very engineering company, and there's one engineering company that's going to organize a bamboo seminar conference there, and I hope that we can make some more connection with really high-class engineers there, because this is partly architecture, but 80% engineering.
Right. And also, like, with this the buildings that you have done, not only it's challenging to build for typical builders, but also it means that you are reintroducing them back to using hands more than tools and equipments. That the new materials, you work with machineries and huge machineries.
There's another aspect to that. Most of my workers are Thai refugees from Burma.
Okay.
And they have nothing else. They learned nothing, right? They come, they have no knowledge. Many of them cannot read and write, and they have nowhere to go. So I taught them about bamboo construction when they were young, when they came 10 years ago, and they learned and they stayed with me and became better. And by today, some of them are the best bamboo craftsmen in the world. Still can't read and write though. But if we make a model, they can look at the model and clearly analyze, what's strong, what's not strong, how we can do things better. And I'd rather have them get the money than buy machines and have machines doing the work. Like we have bamboo dowels. The bamboo nails, everything is done with bamboo nails. Why? Because the bamboo nail doesn't rust, it doesn't split the bamboo, it lasts longer, it's stronger. And they're made by hand, by them, by their parents in the evening. Why? Because that's the way for them to get some money, and I prefer it that way than buying a machine that can make bamboo dowels. So here I'm at a little bit of a problem in terms of scaling things up, and you could say, yeah, that's not the future. Probably it's not the future, but for me right now, I like to keep everything as manual as possible, and it gives things also a different touch. And at this scale that we are working, I can afford to think like that. If we take things at a bigger scale, probably I won't be able to think like that. But that's where we are right now.
Right. Wow. So would they, if you have projects in, let's say you said Koh Samui, would your team, the entire team, travel down there and build it?
Yeah. They have to. They're used to that. They have to travel to different places, and so as I said, I have 4 different teams, so they go to different projects at different times. This is one of the earthen teams. They go to do this here, and then the Adobe bricks, we either make them on site, or if it's around Chiang Mai, I have my own site where I make them, and so they have to go first and make the bricks, or depends.
Right. Wow, that's interesting. I'm imagining about the your Thai staff, he'll get to see the sea,
Yeah.
because they always live in the mountains, so for them to go to different places would be...
Yeah, I was very excited. The very first project we had near the sea, they all wanted to go. Everybody said, no, I want to go to this one, I want to go to... So we took them down anyway to see the sea. Yeah, it was very interesting. They're very loyal, very nice, very hardworking, so we have a very close relationship. I built a place where they all can stay, can bring their families, and And for me, it's great because they stay. I don't have a turnover of workers, right? And so they get better and better. They learn more and more, and they keep that knowledge in the company. So everybody profits.
Right. Great. Any other questions? You know, in Thailand, many people would have certain feeling about bamboos that, you know, when a client approaching an architect, they want a smart building built with smart materials or crisp materials, and they view that as, you know, great architecture, beautiful and modern. Right. And some people would look at the bamboo and think that it might remind them of some shacks, of some inexpensive lifestyle, let's say. How do you find that? Is it a challenge for you to convince your client? Or many of your clients are not Thais, I'm not sure. How do you, because I think it would be difficult to introduce something to them and say, hey, we can do it differently. And you can get more out of it than what you already knew.
What you say is very true. And especially in the beginning, that was a very big challenge. Because in most tropical countries, people who grow up with bamboo, you know, they used to have the bamboo dust come down in their clothes and their food, and they hate it, right? That's how they grow up. So when I get a mixed couple, a foreign man and Thai wife, the foreign guys, oh, bamboo, and the Thai wife, oh, bamboo. I've seen it many times. So in the beginning, that was a big problem. But you see, what I've done very strongly from the beginning is I positioned ourselves on the mid to upper spectrum of the market. I don't do any cheap stuff. I don't do any fast stuff. I don't do any stuff that is only for short term. I only do things that last, that look nice, and that change the image of the bamboo. So if you want to build you something, people come with that. Build me a small hut in Koh Samui fast. Not interested. Or even in Chiang Mai, I don't do that. I only build things that last and are nice in order to change the mindset. NGOs come and say, let's build something for the farmers and for the poor. That's all nonsense. The farmers and the poor, they want concrete. They want steel. They don't want the materials of the poor. I've done it. You know, we've built a thing for the community center for a hill tribe, blah, blah, blah. And then a year later, I go there. It's all run down. I asked the headman in the village, Puyai Ban, what happened? He said, do you really think we're going to use this? We're using this. Concrete, tin roof, you know, stuff that the modern materials, they don't want that. So the only way to change the mindset here is by pulling, by having people who have money, by having people who change society's opinion, by having people who are in the front of magazines, who are in the TV, do this. And once they do this, people who have money, who have a bit more wealthy and who have influence, the others will follow. You know, that's the way to go on this one. In the beginning, when we built the school, everybody was laughing, oh, another hippie school, it's not going to work. Now, if you go there, Mercedes-Benz, BMWs, you know, Ferraris, people that have money bring the kids because they are educated. They realize the advantage of this. They realize this is the future. And they also see their kids are happy. So first step was hard. Now it's a bit easier because when people come to me, they usually already have a certain idea and expectation what they get.
Right. That's great. Yeah, I think as an architect, you know, working with clients is fulfilling and challenging, but also for them to understand that what you are doing is going to give them a smile in the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they come, right? It's the design that inspires them. It's the sustainability part. It's the whole package because, I mean, the whole industry is going into that direction, right? Everybody everything has to be green, you know, see green everywhere. I mean, whether that's sustainable or not is a different question, but the idea of the industry is to be more environmentally friendly, make sure tomorrow actually happens and we're not all gone by then. So I think we're going in the right direction.
Right. And now having to hear from your answers for all my questions, you know, coming back to the first question here, how does the concept benefit the communities? And you were saying that, it's about what you're interested in and this is what you produce. But actually, having heard from what you just said, it sounded like people along the way in the process and the end users and the passers-by who are not even related to this building are all benefiting from it, right? The Thai Yai people who have time are learning new skills, and the bamboo who they are always there, but had certain concept attached to it. Now you're changing its value and introducing the new ways to do things. And, in the end, not all of them will sit there and say, hey, I benefit something from it, but I think at least we all are learning something from this.
The impact, of course, we're looking for impact. I'm just a bit... I'm not familiar with the word community and all the things that, it's included in this. But yes, we definitely want to have an impact on society and change or add something to the thinking. Not necessarily change, but add an aspect that was not expected, an aspect where they can say, yeah, actually we want bamboo, and I'm glad that bamboo can last, and I'm glad that bamboo can give us a chance to bring it into 21st century because, somehow I grew up with it. I didn't like it, but I also liked it. Many Thais have this ambivalent thing, right? That on one hand it's like something that's close to the heart, on the other hand is something where they're suspect of. And once they understand that I solved the problem with the bamboo dust and we solved all the dirt part and you can have it, then I hope it will bring something to the society that again will benefit the society, because what we're doing is we are placing steel with bamboo because it's the tensile element that we are using bamboo. And steel, macroeconomically speaking, in countries like Thailand is mainly imported because the steel industry is a big industry. So it's imported from either from China or from ArcelorMittal, from the big guys. It means that money is all going out. And that money is going up and down with the oil price. Bamboo is here. All the bamboo we use is from northern Thailand. Nothing is imported. The oil price has no influence on the price of my bamboo. So macroeconomically speaking, there's a lot of benefits in looking at it in a bigger scale.
All right. And
I hope the steel industry didn't hear me because then I'm a dead man.
They're the furthest.
Okay.
All right. And we're happy. We're glad that you're here in Thailand.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Any last words that you would like to speak to the audience?
Yeah, I hope you didn't get too bored. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate your patience. And if you ever need anything done from bamboo, come and see us. Or even if you want to visit, please come to Chiang Mai. Most welcome.
All right. Thank you very much.
I must say, I've never seen anybody who can come up with questions like you. Absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for moderating.
ขอบคุณค่ะ Thank you ขอบคุณเพื่อนๆสถาปนิกทุกท่านนะคะหวังว่าทุกท่านจะได้ความรู้ใหม่ๆจากคุณมาร์คัสนะคะขอบคุณค่ะ